Well, good morning, everyone. Week 18 is on our way. We have going into the last week of the season. As usual, we have Jed over in the suburb of Illinois, and Jed Jimmy's here in Chicago today.
Oh, welcome to our cold. We have snow on the ground.
I do miss the heat of Phoenix here, Jed.
Jed, Jim, with everything that's happening on the football field, a lot of times it looks like the game is suspended for this particular week. And what thoughts and prayers continue to be with Hamlin as well, too. But in terms of the game itself, what was your reaction as you were watching the game on Monday?
Well, I was watching with my 10-year-old, so that was really, he was definitely scared and concerned for Damar. And so that was I don't think I'll ever forget that. I was looking back and it was 50 years ago that actually it was a Detroit Lion playing the Chicago Bears who had a heart attack on the field. And that's the only other time, at least a cardiac arrest that I could see. But it was really, I was watching live as it happened, and it was so clear because he got up from the tackle. So he got up from the tackle and then just crumpled to the ground. And so it was clear that something was very wrong. I felt bad for my son. I think he was really kind of shocked. So we had some good conversations about it, but yeah, I think the whole community was shocked.
Yeah, I think for me, I was watching it, but I had a bunch of people over, and so I really wasn't paying attention too much. I saw a bunch of people crowding around on midfield, and I figured it was just an injury, and they just called a timeout. But it lasted a long time, so I actually went back and viewed it because when he hit the player, it took him like a second or two, to fall back. So yeah, I was trying to figure out what was, and I think that networks were trying to figure out what was going on as well too, because they kept taking timeouts, and I think they were just trying to figure out, okay, like, is this game going to continue? What do we do? Do we continue to talk about it? But eventually, they just sent it back to the studios.
Yeah. I think a lot of times you saw Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. They did a very good job with limited information. Went over to Booger McFarland, Adam Schefter, and Susie Colbert. They did a very good job. And finally, it ended over as Scott Van Pelt. And they had to try to figure out what was going on with no information. Now, at the same time, that means that as this was going on, Scott Van Pelt and Joe Buck was not fighting this week. So that was good to see.
Yeah, and this was the first time I am not a fan of Booger McFarland. I do not like his commentary at all. Like, I think he has no commentary basically, but he did a very nice job in responding to this from a player's perspective. And I thought he was one of the first to say there's no way they should continue this game. And I think, unfortunately, the NFL dragged their feet and took a little bit too long because it would have been a PR nightmare had they have tried to continue.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure they wanted to continue that game, right? Because it was an important game, not just for fantasy purposes, but I think for championship playoff scenarios as well too.
Yeah, basically they're in a no-win situation now because no matter what, someone is disadvantaged in some way. But it does sound like, at least the latest I've read, I don't know if you guys see anything else. The latest I've read is they're just going to cancel it. It seems like, and then continue with Week 18, and so it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, talking about fantasy games though, I don't know. I've actually had a couple of people say that instead of Week 17 being their championship game, they decided to essentially void Week 17 and they're going to do Week 18 as their championship game. I feel like, look, 17, you might as well let it go. You won and just kind of go with it.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't even see that as an option that you could go to Week 18. I guess that's it's possible. You could reset it and just go to Week 18. No, but the two leagues that I was in the championships in, they both basically just said we're just going to call it as ending.
The hard part is your systems. Let's talk about fantasy football. Your systems can't reset to Week 18. You will probably have to start a new league, take that points, manually add it on, and then decide who the winner is.
No, the only way you could do, I don't even know how some of these guys are doing it. What I would do is just let it play out, and then you play your best lineup. The other team plays their best lineup. It's not.
You just see it.
Go off those points.
Yeah, you're right, because they'll probably update this. Yeah, they'll probably update the stats no matter what. It's an interesting idea. I was thinking basically in our one Walter White league to basically just offer to split, the pot with the second guy. I think that's
very nice of you, Jed.
I think that's the fairest thing.
No, actually, to be honest, like when I saw it, earlier this week because I was looking at the championship. I was like, Jed's gonna have a hard time defeating them, you know. And
Yeah.
then I looked on it again. And I was like, oh wow, he won.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you look at it, there were so many different fantasy football players that were playing. Let's say if I was in championship, I would have had Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. Suddenly you have Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, the Buffalo defense by itself, the two kickers. I mean, both of them, all of them were very, very good.
Yeah, and when we talk about kind of fantasy MVPs for the season, we should talk about the players that really performed well and then those who didn't on championship week. Because I was thinking about Justin Jefferson. Anyone who was depending on Justin Jefferson, he laid a big egg in championship weekend. So that's something you have to take into consideration.
You know, the hard part is you spend all 16 weeks preparing for this one game, or 14, 15 weeks. But by the time you get to the championship, either a number of players are injured, they're not playing, or it's playoff contention. You're really focused on that one person to do well in that game, you know, and it's hard because things change so much from week one.
Yeah. Who knew that a lot of times as a quarterback, I saw one championship team won with Daniel Jones as the quarterback. Who knew that your entire season would come down to Daniel Jones?
No, and he did well. Yeah, he did well.
Or Devontae Adams. Look, they had Josh Stidham as your quarterback. Derek Carr is out. Wow, did he do well? So versus like what you said, Justin Jefferson completely laid an egg.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, I would love to come back in a few weeks for the three of us to talk about MVPs, disappointments of the year, different things like that. But let me ask you guys one question before we go through some of these games and all that stuff. For you, who was the MVP for your team this year? Who was the one person week in and week out that you counted on every single week that stuck out? Like, for instance, for me, it was Jalen Hurts. Week in, week out on any of my team, I knew if I had Jalen Hurts on my team, he was going to win. And as the quarterback, he just carried my team all the time. Mm-hmm. So even though there was bad players, Jalen Hurts always was able to compensate all my bad players. What about for you guys?
Yeah, that's true.
For me, it was Tyreek Hill. You know, he's close to being my MVP for the season, although there's a couple others I think even did even more. But Tyreek Hill, two reasons. One, he performed pretty much every single week. But two, I got him, late. Like he was a second, third round pick.
Yeah, no, totally.
And so it was a really nice value pick. So Tyreek Hill was the one for me.
I also felt like this year Tyreek Hill was more consistent, right? Because usually with the Chiefs, he did have like some really good games where he scored like 30 or 40 points. And then he would come back with like 8-point dud, right?
Yeah.
But this year, I felt like he was pretty consistent every week in and week out.
Yeah. Now, it did help that Jalen Waddle was on the opposite side. So now a lot of times you didn't have your best cornerback just covering. You also had to be careful of Jalen Waddle as well, too.
Yeah. I think mine was Austin Eckler. Eckler was in quite a few of my teams. I do think, right, I was trying to think who would be one of the number one running backs next year. I would think Eckler is going to be at least one or two because he's so consistent. I mean, he's really taken on that LaDainian Tomlinson role.
Oh yeah, Eckler to me is probably the fantasy MVP. I mean, he was amazing. I had him on one team, and I think you're right. Between Eckler and McCaffrey, I think McCaffrey played really well. Especially after the trade. So, of course, the injury risk is still there, but I think it's between those two guys.
Yeah. And one of the things I like about Eckler is he gets involved in the fantasy. Like, for instance, on his Instagram recently, right before week 17, he says, okay, post a picture of me in your championship team lineup and then enter for a prize. And so I appreciate him interacting with the fans like that.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Disappointing player. Who was the most disappointing player for you guys?
I think for me, Jamar Chase. I mean, and if you look at weeks 1 to 8, and he was injured for quite a few of those weeks as well too. He just, for the number one pick for me, and also for the guy who just spent the most money for, I think I forgot. I spent like close to $80 for him on auction leagues. He did not do as you expected, and you expect him to have those Tyreek Hill numbers as well too this year.
Yeah, mine is definitely Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts,
Kyle Pitts.
He hurt me a lot in
Yeah.
a lot of leagues. And I'm not even going to keep him in our keeper league. So it just shows
Yeah.
you how far he dropped.
For me, it was one of three running backs: Javonte Williams, J.K. Dobbins, or Cam Akers. Hey, look, Cam Akers,
Okay,
103 yards.
that guy came on so much.
Hey,
Yeah,
he almost I played him in one of my leagues. The opponent had him. He almost won it for the guy.
Yeah.
So
No, okay, Tom. Seriously, can go back. Like the last 3 weeks, if you played him on your championship,
Yep.
you would have won, right? That guy just went off the last few weeks, and I don't know if they just finally let him do what he did, or he just like, okay, I'm better now.
But for me, that was the Cam Akers that I saw in that playoff a couple of years ago when he got injured. Did it take him that long? Did he just need a chance or something like that? That's why I like Cam Akers a lot. Now, the attitude and all that stuff, but the Rams, at least to their credit, saw something that gave him another chance because the guy almost got either cut or traded, but at the same time, he got another chance and he made up for it.
Well, it's also because they had no players on the field as well, too. Right? Like, and so my guess is they looked at it and just said, look, we got Baker there as the quarterback. Let's just see what Cam Akers can do and relieve some pressure off of Baker Mayfield.
But the very fact that they were able to cut Darrell Henderson said a lot to them what they thought about Cam Akers.
Yeah. I think next year, I mean, I know we could talk about it, but next year's team is, I do think Stafford's going to be out. I think Baker's going to be the starting quarterback. I do think that Akers going to be starting a wide receiver, running back. And I think you're going to see some emergence of people like Tutu Atwell on the receiving core. So that's going to be a totally different team next year.
What, you think Stafford's going to be out? What do you mean? Like,
I think he's going to retire. That's my thought. I think he's going to retire. Yeah.
Wow.
See, I don't think so. A lot of times, I think he may try to play it for one more year. Now, if he gets hit one more time, then maybe
no, because everyone was saying that he's like he just can't move anymore.
Wow.
Unless you say, okay, I'm going to do it one more year. We're going to try to keep this championship team together, and then we're it, right? But I do think that they're setting Baker Mayfield up to be the starting quarterback.
What about Tua? You guys think Tua's going to ultimately, what are they going to play out with him? I mean, that guy with all his concussions is pretty worrisome.
You're now into the third concussion with 2 straight concussions this season. I think a lot of times, look, I mean, for his sake as well, too, a lot of times you just have to be concerned about at the least, you got to have a backup. I would draft a young quarterback or at least bring someone.
No, but I if I was Miami, I would consider bringing in like a Derek Carr, a veteran presence who might come in. But yet he didn't do well with Devontae Adams, his best friend. And so, but it is kind of weird how all of these quarterbacks got dumped towards the last couple of weeks where they just didn't play them. I mean, even who is it? Last night they were talking about Carson Wentz. They just said most likely either he's relegated to just a backup now or he's going to be out of the league because there's literally now going to Taylor Heineke.
Well, did you hear, though, Taylor Heineke, the big story this morning, apparently he basically demoted himself and said they should play the rookie. They should start the rookie to give the rookie a chance.
Sam Howell.
Taylor Heineke said that?
Yeah, Heineke said that.
Yeah. Okay. Did you hear the other story? A reporter after a game asked Ron Rivera, did you know you were knocked out of the playoffs? He was so surprised. He didn't realize he was knocked out of the playoffs. And later on, he says, I was so focused on winning. I thought we were going to win and we were going to flex. And so he was so surprised that he got knocked out of the playoffs.
It's classic Ron Rivera.
Yeah, but let's see how Sam Howell does as well, too. Jed, Nathan Peterman is starting for Josh Fields. I'm hoping the Bears would just take a loss. I'm hoping Indianapolis beats the Houston Texans, and I want the Bears to trade their draft picks.
Yeah, that Indianapolis-Houston game is going to be hilarious because they both, I don't know, I think they both don't want to win. So
no, they both want to lose. So they can, I mean, Houston wants to keep their number one draft pick.
Yep.
Indianapolis wants to move up higher so they can draft a quarterback.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. Either way, the Bears are sitting pretty. I mean, worst case scenario, we get a number 2 pick. Best case scenario, we somehow get a number 1 pick. I really hope they do the right thing, trade down, get a ton of draft picks. Let's just see what happens. But it's exciting. It's exciting for the Bears.
What about the scenario about trading for Devontae Adams in let's say their 6 to 9 pick and let's say another 5th rounder to LA Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders.
No, see, I don't like that pick because here's my thing. I much rather have like 2 or 3 because you're gonna just think you're gonna have somebody like a Colts that as you get closer to draft day, they're gonna get desperate. And it's just like the Trey Lance deal, they're going to trade them like 2, 3, or 4 draft picks for the next couple of years. I much rather have that than an aging Devontae Adams.
Yeah, the one thing I would say is the Bears have historically, I don't know why, we can't draft wide receivers.
Yeah.
Like we've been pretty bad at the draft in general, but at least had a few hits. But with wide receivers, we are horrendous. And so the idea of trading for a wide receiver, I think, is a smart one. But I agree with you. Devontae Adams maybe is a little bit getting up there. And I hope mainly, if we can fortify the offensive line, let's really do this the right way.
Do you know who their last Pro Bowl drafted wide receiver was for the Bears?
Michael Thompson.
No, it was during the Super Bowl era.
Who was their starter in the Super Bowl? I don't remember.
Is it
Willie Gault?
Willie Gault.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Willie Gault was the last wide receiver drafted to make the Pro Bowl by the Bears.
Wow.
I mean, you could say who's the guy who's the kick returner?
Johnny Davis.
No, not Johnny Davis. He's up for the Hall of Fame this year.
Oh, Devin Hester.
Yeah.
Hester,
You could technically say he was it, but no, he was primarily a punt returner, kick returner.
Now, would you guys be disappointed with the Bears if they kept, let's say, the number 2 draft pick, drafted a stud defensive lineman or offensive lineman? Would you be disappointed by that?
Oh no, I'd like that. If
Yeah.
they draft a stud on the line, I'm really good with that. I kind of hope they invest in the offense. Although offensive line doesn't usually go in the first top picks. Usually, even the best guy goes in the second half of the first round. So if they want to add another rusher, given that we lost, all of our defensive talent, that's fine with me. But I hope they spend time on the line.
I do too. I mean, I think so. I think they're slated to draft a defensive guy, right? In the second round, they keep it. I really do hope that they will trade down. I don't want them trading down to the teens. If they can trade down into somewhere in like 6, 7. I don't even know where the Colts are, but trade with the Colts and get some additional draft picks from them. That'd be great.
I mean, the Colts
free agency money too.
Yeah, the Colts are looking. The Raiders are looking. Washington's looking. I mean, who else? There's a ton
Carolina is looking.
Carolina, yeah. There's a ton of teams out there. Oh, and I also read. I don't know if you guys saw this. Kyler Murray apparently now they're projecting will not be ready to start the season.
Yeah, that's what Kingsbury said.
Yeah, that's a big change, and it actually impacts me because for the keeper league, I was like, man, I don't know.
Hey, look, this has happened last year. If I had to pick between Murray and Joe Burrow right now, I pick Burrow.
Oh yeah, definitely. Burrow was maybe top 3 even at the end of the day. I mean, he really second half, he was amazing.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow really, really helped me. I really enjoyed having him on the team because he's not sexy. He's not a runner. He won't get me any rushing yards. But I actually would rather pick him over Tom Brady all day and Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, can I tell you? So here's a projected draft order, right? Houston Texans first, Chicago. And did you know that the reason why they're first is because they have 2, 13, and 1. So they tied 1 game, whereas the Bears are 3 and 13. So it's that tie game that's really making a difference. So it's Houston, the Bears, Seattle that gets a pick from Denver, that dumb draft trade that they'd made. The Cardinals are 4th, and the Colts are 5th. And the Lions are 6th. The Lions actually are pretty good with 6.
Well, because they got that LA Raiders, LA Rams.
So I think, look, I'm more than happy if the Colts came back and said, look, I'm going to give you the 5th pick as well as maybe like the 3rd pick and the 2nd pick next year for your number 2. I'll do it because think about it. Well, the only issue is 3 and 4 Seattle and Arizona. They don't need a quarterback. And so that's why they might not feel as desperate.
Yeah. Jed, 2 things. A decade ago, the Cleveland Browns did draft Joe Thomas, offensive lineman. He did pretty well.
Yeah.
And then secondly, a lot of times talking about the Indianapolis game as well as Detroit game. Indianapolis as well as Houston game. If you want to tank, what do you say to your team to lose? Because you can't really tell your team to lose.
Yeah, I think the way you lose is basically you say we're evaluating talent, and then you play all your 3rd stringers essentially.
Well, that's, I mean, essentially, if you look at the press conference with the Bears, that's what they're doing with Fields. You know, they just said their medical people said that they're not clearing him, and that's just it. You know, but everyone was saying afterwards, they said everyone knew that he was lying because he didn't even look like he was convincing himself.
Yeah. The one thing I was going to say, though, Tommy, you were talking about Burrows over Tom Brady. I agree with that, but you have to give Tom Brady props. If he was on your team, he had a huge game. He had a
400 yards.
400
Mike
yard.
Evans.
Yeah, and Mike Evans too. Boy, Mike Evans, you know, he had another 1,000. And I realized, see, we should have thought of that, is that Evans had a streak of 1,000-yard seasons. He needed over 100 yards to get it, and Tom Brady helped make sure that he got it.
Yeah.
And so, and
Brady, I'm sure
Brady,
there's incentives tied to us.
exactly. And Brady always thinks about that kind of stuff. And so that was a really good pickup for Mike Evans too.
I mean, we could talk about this next week, but one player who I think Tom, you drafted him a couple times, Chris Godwin, who maybe people drafted towards the end. He actually turned out to be a pretty decent fantasy pickup this year for somebody who was drafted later in the rounds.
Yeah. Hey, what about the DeAndre Hopkins? He's out for week 18. If you drafted DeAndre Hopkins, would you be happy with that pick or disappointed by a pick? Because he really, when you needed him the most, he disappeared, but he did get you into the playoffs for a couple weeks.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was happy with him because I drafted him like in the almost the last rounds,
right? Yeah,
and then just stashed him, and then he had a great. Remember when he came back hot. Like he played right away, was over 100 yards, had whatever double-digit fantasy points. I mean, he definitely performed. But I sat him that last week. Fortunately, I think they eventually declared him out before the game started anyway, so I didn't get hurt by that.
All right, I know Jimmy has to run. Let me run a couple of things. Let me run playoff scenarios by you and get your picks, right? Currently in AFC, Chiefs 13-3, Bills, Bengals, Jaguars, Chargers. All right?
Yeah.
Here are the guys who are going to go in the wild card. What do you guys think? Ravens, Patriots have the leading edge. Dolphins and Steelers are looking in, and Titans are looking in. If one of those guys win, then they get in. Out of those three, if you had to pick one out of the five, Ravens, Patriots, Dolphins, Steelers, Titans, who do you like?
Here's the thing. I would love to see the Dolphins get in because they had the opportunity to control their destiny, but now the Patriots control their destiny. I do think that at the end of the day, Belichick's not going to let Patriots lose this game. I think they're going to end up getting in, and Miami's going to be out.
Yeah, and that's pretty amazing if you think about it. The Patriots really do not have if you look at the talent.
Yeah, they have nobody on that team.
They have nobody. It's amazing for them to get into the playoffs. So another great coaching job. But I agree with you. If the Dolphins could get in, I think they could be dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ravens, it's all about Lamar Jackson. Does anyone know what's really going on? Yeah, I know he's not playing, but what's really going on with the guy? I mean,
free agency at the end of the year.
Oh yeah, right. But did you know that what's his name? Who's the backup? Tyler
Huntley.
Huntley.
Did you know he is the substitute for the Pro Bowl? This year. I didn't know he actually did that good. But I guess people voted him in because they said he was pretty decent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the other kind of sneaky MVP is Geno Smith. You look at Geno Smith's numbers. Yeah. Holy smoke, that guy played really well.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of Geno Smith, Russell Wilson did actually pretty good this week too, without Nathaniel Hackett. So maybe it is the coach's issues.
One thought in terms of going back, because if you look at the playoff pictures, Ravens are with Tyler Huntley. They won't win. Patriots, I don't want them to win. Dolphins are pretty good. Steelers, no, I don't think any of us think the Steelers are any good at all with their coaching carousel. But Titans 7-9, even though they don't have a good quarterback. I bet you a lot of times they're going to keep giving it to Derrick Henry, who rested in week 17 just so he could play in week 18, and he says he's all ready to go.
Yeah. But Vrabel's a good coach as well, too. Yeah. Did you guys see it? By the way, did you guys see that clip when Brady played the Steelers about what he was saying about the Steelers? He's like, I did not leave and divorce my wife so I can lose to Kenny Pickett.
Wow. Wow.
So they called him saying that. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. Now, in terms of Denver Broncos, did you guys hear who they reached out to for an interview?
Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Jed, I was at the Fiesta Bowl.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, 10 rows up. It was a great seats.
Oh, that's awesome.
Everyone that I was sitting around says they think that Harbaugh's leaving. Because he's got Panthers, he's got the Colts, and he's got Denver. And so everyone, even all the commentators, are saying Harbaugh is most likely is trying to inch his way back into the NFL.
Man, that was a great game, by the way. If you guys don't like college football, the semifinals were amazing. Both games were so good, and I was so impressed. Both games, but also I was really disappointed for Ohio State. I thought C.J. Stroud looked amazing. Like I kept thinking, man, this guy looks like he's ready for the NFL. So it'll be interesting to see who comes out and when. But
Georgia has a lot of good players.
Yeah, Georgia, it was a tough game, but I thought Ohio State had it. They really, basically they were ahead.
It came out to that kick, right? And it wasn't that long of it. It wasn't like a 60-yarder. It was like a 40-something yard field.
Yeah, it was almost 50. Yeah. But still, it was a tough game to lose. But I would love to see TCU upset Georgia in the championship. We'll see.
Yeah, the Michigan
one thing with the NFC final wild card spot. If the Green Bay Packers beat the Detroit Lions, the Packers are in. If the Packers lose and the Seattle Seahawks win, the Seattle Seahawks are in. If the Seahawks lose and the Lions beat the Packers, Detroit is in. If you had to pick between Detroit, Green Bay, and Seattle, that whoever wins gets the farthest into the playoffs, who would it be for you?
Man, I can't. I just can't imagine that Aaron Rodgers is going to let them lose to the Lions. But I think the Lions have the best chance to really push and go someplace. I would love to see the Lions win that. I just can't see that happening, which pushes it means that it's probably the Packers. But I'd also like to see Seattle in. I think Seattle with a strong run game, Geno Smith's been playing well. They could be dangerous too.
I think a story-wise, I think if Seattle and the Lions were to win, it's like that Cinderella story. But I agree with you. I think Aaron Rodgers is not going to let them lose to the Lions. I do think, though, that if he gets into the playoffs, he's going to be dangerous because, look at how they defeated and demolished the Vikings. So I feel like they're trying to make a statement right now.
Yeah. Hey, honestly, a lot of times Christian Watson has been doing good. You still have the two running backs as well, too. I would love to see the Lions in there, but I have a feeling that the Packers will be in. Yeah. As we wrap up this show, let me ask you guys a quick question. I'm actually going into the Hall of Fame. All right. There are 15 finalists for the Hall of Fame. And I'm going to quickly go over those, but you have to pick 5. Which 5 would you pick? All right.
Mm-hmm.
Jared Allen, Willie Anderson, offensive tackle, Rondé Barber, cornerback, Dwight Freeney, Devin Hester, Torrey Holt, Andre Johnson, Darrelle Revis, Joe Thomas, Zach Thomas, DeMarcus Ware, Reggie Wayne, Patrick Willis, or Darren Woodson. I know it's a lot, but which 5 would you like, or a couple of people that stand out that you say?
So Joe Thomas is in for sure.
Yeah, Joe Thomas is in for sure. Yeah.
And Darrelle Revis. Wouldn't you say Darrelle Revis is in for sure?
Yeah, I actually bet. My guess is it's going to be Darrelle Revis. I think it's going to be Joe Thomas. I think it's going to be Reggie Wayne.
Reggie Wayne over Andre Johnson and Torrey. You're probably going to only have one wide receiver.
I think it's going to be Reggie Wayne. Yeah. I know Tommy likes Patrick Willis.
But he didn't play enough years for him to qualify for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I thought
no, he played 7 years, same as Reggie Wayne, so
yeah, between Wayne and Holt, that's an interesting one. The other one was the second name you mentioned, which was a guard,
Willie Anderson.
Yeah. I like Jared Allen, but I don't think Jared Allen is going to make it. I don't think Rondé Barber is going to make
Dwight Freeney. What would you guys think of Dwight Freeney or Devin Hester?
I like Hester just because I think he really changed the position. And although I was just seeing, is it Cordell Patterson who's like beating his records for? He crossed one of his records, I think, for most touchdowns. But I think Hester really changed a lot about just the kicking game. Yeah. So I'd like to see him.
I think Darren Woodson's going to make it as well too.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's cornerbacks, Darren Woodson or Darrell
Rondé
Rivas.
Barber.
You would probably
Yeah.
go with Darrell Rivas
Yeah,
first over Darren Woodson.
Yeah.
And linebackers. Okay, linebackers, if you had to pick one of three, Zach Thomas, DeMarcus Ware, or Dwight Freeney, which one would you pick?
Ooh, I think it's between Freeney and Ware.
DeMarcus Ware, he did win a bunch of Super Bowls for Denver, and he was very good with Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I think it's going to be DeMarcus Ware. I'm just looking through the list. Yeah, I my guess though, yeah, it's going to be him.
Yeah, well, I would love to see Devin Hester in the game.
Yeah,
in the Hall of Fame.
I forgot that he played for Baltimore, Seattle. Devin Hester. He played for 7 years for the Bears.
As we wrap up, because I would like to have one more show for us to talk about MVPs, disappointing players of the year. Let me switch gears a little bit. Mitchell
Bulls beat the Nets.
Before that, Mitchell's 71 points against the Nets. Did you guys watch that game?
I watched the replay of the game, and did you guys see the Lopez tweet after the game?
Yes.
Yeah, that was hilarious. He said, I want everyone to see that Lopez and Mitchell combined for 72 points tonight. That's so funny.
They said toward overtime, Mitchell was constantly the best player he was running up. Everyone was tired, but he still had enough stamina, energy, and he was just rushing past, blowing past by all the players.
Well, I was looking at it going into overtime. He had, I think, 58 going into overtime. So in overtime, he scored, I think, almost all their points. He had like 11, 13 points. So it was a pretty impressive showing. But Mitchell, you've always known. I mean, he's
pretty good, actually.
Oh,
Mitchell.
He's very good. Yeah. Very, very good. So it was good to see.
Donovan Mitchell. Hey, look, Gobert has been sucking it up. Yesterday night, he got like 8 points and 10 rebounds. I said, oh my gosh, he's terrible for me.
You know what? I've been reading all of these. I mean, no one has said Gobert is the reason why they stink, but everyone on the Vikings have been saying that they all know there's a reason why they stink, but no one will say it. And I think it's Gobert.
Yeah, the Timberwolves, I think a lot of times, Gobert tends to just rub people the wrong way for some odd reason.
It's the French.
That is true. I forget that. That is the French. Actually, most Eastern Europeans, they can rub people the wrong just because they're so honest about everything.
Yeah. All right. I know Jimmy needs to take his daughter over to the dentist. And Jed, what's your schedule? Are you working this week?
Yep. It's been tough trying to get back into the groove, but working this week, and then I'm traveling in Cleveland next week, so we'll have to find a time to meet.
I don't think anyone's working right now, like this week. I feel like people are still like somewhat like all my meetings got canceled this week.
Oh, that's nice.
Jed, are you working? Are you in Cleveland for work or for fun?
Yeah, for work.
Okay, so maybe we'll come back in 2 weeks because I'm gone to Miami next week.
Well, I'm out Tuesday, Wednesday, so depending on what days, we can figure it out.
You got it. All right, we'll talk soon.
All right, bye.